Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. I'm very happy to welcome Dr. Laura Gabayan. She is a world-renowned, highly published physician researcher, and she has scientifically defined wisdom in her book, Common Wisdom. We're going to get to know her and have a great conversation. So, Dr. Laura, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
So I am a physician, and then after emergency medicine residency, so I did ER, I did an additional 3 years of learning about research. And I published a lot in academia, and that's when I realized, okay, great, that's what the world is. And then I developed a lot of medical problems, and I'm like, wait, the world or physicians actually don't think about other things or outside the box, the medical problems. They think, oh, you have a diagnosis, this is what you do. They don't think about, oh, let's think about everything else. So then I thought, okay, the whys do. So I studied wisdom.
You mentioned that you had some medical problems yourself. What happened, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I had medical problems and I went through the whole gamut. And I don't focus on that. I focus on, well, it ended up being chronic Lyme disease.
Mm.
And that attacked my whole body. It still has, so my speech is not great. But that's when I started thinking, wait a second, I didn't know that initially, but there has to be a way that people can think outside the box. Physicians are used to diagnosis. And they're used to this, and that's how you treat it. And physicians don't even believe in Lyme disease. They're like, we don't believe in chronic Lyme. We believe in acute, meaning only like if you're just bitten right then and there by a tick, not that it's had in your system for 20 years, type thing.
And how did it affect you as far as your practice?
So it's funny because in the I guess 2015, 2017-ish, I actually stopped working in the ER because I couldn't manage. I couldn't walk around well, and I just stopped. And that's when I started thinking, well, who thinks outside the box? And it was the wise that do, because physicians don't. And that's when I realized, wait a second, with wisdom, there was no literature, really. There was no way to really understand it. So I decided to do my own project about wisdom. And that's why I wrote the book, Common Wisdom.
So, in your opinion, what is the difference between knowledge and wisdom?
Big difference. And that's a great question because a lot of people think they're the same and they're not. And so I interviewed. So what happened? Let me give you a background. So I did not know much about wisdom. I studied. I did know how to do a research project, and that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn about what we know about wisdom, and I'm gonna talk to the people who are wise, and that's why I interviewed 60 wise individuals. And the reason I came up with interviewing people who are wise is beforehand, I was looking at tests, I was looking at questionnaires, this and that, but there's nothing that will tell you if someone is wise except for a person saying, oh yeah, I went to college with that person, or oh yeah, that person is wise. I remember that. And so that's how, and then I came up with the 8 elements of wisdom. But going back to a question of knowledge versus wisdom, a lot of people think, oh, they're similar. I mean, in order to do the project, I had to hire a research assistant and project kind of, she wasn't project manager, but more of a marketer. And they both initially thought that it's intelligence. Everyone thought that. And I'm like, don't you know people who are very intelligent, who've studied a lot, they're not wise. They don't make good decisions. They don't give good advice. So no. Look, of the 8 elements I found after interviewing 60 people, I did discover that curiosity is one of the elements. And so someone who is wise may have an education, but it's not the other way around. They may not. So it's not the same.
I'll tell you, when I was growing up and I was around a lot of older folks that they only got maybe as far as 6th grade in education, but their life experience and the wisdom they had to pass on was more than I got from even some of my teachers who were highly intelligent.
I agree. And that was so the reason what I founded my research on was part literature, and in looking at psychology and geriatrics and sociology journals, I found that wisdom is related to age and that it has an inverse U relationship. People who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s are wise. And so they're not as flexible in their 80s and 90s often. So I did not interview them. So of the 60, it was people who were age 50 to 79. And based on that, I found, the attributes of wisdom, but age also, as you said, may not necessarily mean wisdom either.
Sure, sure.
I mean, people who are older who have had more life experience. I agree with you, but people, a lot of times, they may still make bad decisions and they still may give bad advice.
Yeah, I've run across a few of those.
Right. And so it's not, and I didn't know what wisdom was. I didn't know what it was, so I wanted to study it.
So, what were these 8 points that you focused on?
I'll say, well, I interviewed 60 people, and of the 60, when you do research, there's 2 kinds of research, and the one that where you have no idea, you start in the blank slate, and then you develop it, is called qualitative research. And based on that, I came up with the 8 different elements of wisdom. And in order, I'll tell you what was most common versus less common. And so the one most common, and I'll say in order: resilience, kindness, positivity, spirituality, humility, tolerance, creativity, and curiosity. And my book, Common Wisdom, talks about these 8 elements and it also weaves in stories of the people I interviewed, but also it's an easy read, very to the point. I'm just so used to being very to the point. And my book talks about the 8 elements in a way where someone can apply them to their life. Now, it does not, like, I had someone write me saying, "Oh, I'm intelligent but not wise." And I'm like, "No, the goal is not for you to say I'm not wise. The goal for you is to be like, okay, I'm very good at kindness, but I'm not very good at being positive." Or for example, so increasing the element that you are good at versus not good at, or focusing on the one that I wanted to break it down, and I did.
Well, I'm working on the kindness part.
I
And
agree. That's for me, being a Middle Eastern person or having come from the Middle East, where kindness is kind of viewed as a weakness and kindness is viewed as being a pushover
Mhm.
and being someone who kind of does not value themselves as much. And I think is the opposite, by the way. Kindness has been something that's hard for me too. So the reason I came up with the name Common Wisdom was because it was looking at what was common amongst these people,
Mhm.
right? So the elements that were common, and these were common people, and I feel like we don't need famous people, or we don't need someone who has done amazing things to tell us. It's really important to talk to people who are common.
Now, I'm curious about the spirituality part. I used to go to church, and I'm sorry I say used to, but religion was a problem for me.
I think I mean, in that chapter, I definitely say you can be religious or spiritual or both. And so the two do not necessarily go hand in hand.
I agree.
And some people think they do, but the majority realize that religion can help me become more spiritual, or it can help me bond with some other people, but the two may or may not be related. The idea of spirituality is realizing there is something bigger than yourself. And that's it. And everyone's practice or spiritual practice is different.
Well, religion, I can say, was a foundation for me, but there's so many different beliefs, and I felt more as if these beliefs were more of a man-made thing. And when I finally decided, I've put my eyes on man too much, I need to focus on God, I became more spiritual. And although I don't go to church, I do spend every day praying and meditating, that kind of thing.
So the way we came up with the 8 is we had people. So we did what's called an iterative process. We had like over 20 different elements initially, or themes.
Mhm.
And prayer was a big one that went into spirituality. People who talked about praying, felt like it was a way of putting it out there.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily saying, "Oh, God, help me with X." It was not asking, but just putting it out there.
Now, when I pray, I start off, of course, I try to go through the things that I've been doing wrong and that I know I need to work on. And I do ask for help in working on those. And by the way, don't ever ask for patience, because God will definitely put something out there for you to learn patience. And I also go through everything that I'm thankful for. And then it goes,
Gratitude
I'm sorry,
was
go
a
ahead.
big component of positivity. And there are people, I feel like gratitude is what allows you to get through the hard times. Regardless, we had a minister in the book of the 60 people I talked to who said, really helps you get to the other side, meaning the other side of difficulty, whatever it may be. It could be the most smallest thing. Being grateful for the smallest thing will help you see what just see things differently. So I agree.
Did you come across anyone that stood out from everyone else that maybe had more of the elements than the others?
So the first one was resilience, and I think I didn't come across one person. There is a few that come to mind that overcame huge obstacles, like huge. And it makes you think, but they were just so at peace. And they were like, so, thinking to themselves and the idea of resilience is things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And the idea is that, yeah, it sucks. It was emotionally difficult, but it taught me a lot. So I think overall, I think it was just, I don't know if one person was the main thing, but I think it's just the idea that, oh my gosh, you think you have it bad. You have no idea.
Right. All the things that I've been through. And I remember when I was going through these things, I felt as if my whole world was falling apart at the time, and like, oh, why am I going through this? Now that I look back, I'm thankful that I went through what I did, because now I know what I can do, that I can overcome these things.
I mean, even now, I have a hard time walking still and talking, and my husband doesn't see how are you okay with this? I'm like, well, it's my condition that let me write this book. Because if I had did not have this condition, I would not do it. So I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, and that's what the book is about. It's things kind of are there to teach you a lesson. They make you stronger and they make you wiser.
I hate making this sound like I'm making this about me, but you know, if I hadn't gone through what I had went through, like personal things, well, I'll just go out and say it. I was molested as a child. I went through alcohol and drug abuse, and I could go on and on and on. Those things made it possible for me to relate to others that have been there and done that. And I told you before we started that I developed a spinal disease and I had to retire early. But if I hadn't retired, then I wouldn't be doing this right now. And then I wouldn't be meeting all these great people. And I'm getting a lot out of this. I'm hoping other folks do, but I feel like I'm getting a lot out of talking to people like you.
Thank you. And I agree with you. I feel like for example, everything that's happened, I feel like it does allow me to connect with people more. Like not being able to walk. I look at someone with a disability in a different way. Or not being able to talk as well, for being such a control freak that I am. And I mean, I went into emergency medicine because I wanted to control, I want to know what to do in every situation. If I was in a remote village and someone had X, I want to know what to do. So that's like the ultimate wanting to control.
Mhm.
And I don't have it right now. So I think I mean, whether you want it or not, whether you like it or not, it definitely teaches you a lot.
And we talked about resilience and spirituality and kindness.
So it's funny because the first one was resilience, the second was kindness, the third was positivity, then spirituality, and my favorite chapter was humility. And
Mm,
I think, as you will see when you read the book, the people that I spoke with, a lot of them had accomplished so much, and yet they downgraded it. And it was only me looking them up on the internet that I found all the things they really did. And they downgraded just because it did not make them feel big to make others feel small.
mm.
And that idea was everywhere. And I think humility also allows you to connect. It allows you to connect with other people. And regardless, everyone is fighting a battle. And it's a way for you to kind of be on the same terms of them.
I'm thankful for those that have shown humility, that are very successful, but have kind of taken me under their wing. It makes me feel so blessed.
I agree. I mean, I remember when I was a resident and and attending. So you go through medical school, then you do residency. Residency is where you train to be whatever doctor. Attending is done with all of that. They're finished. And I remember I was a resident, and residents are lower on the totem pole, right? And so there was someone who was done, who was an attending, and he goes to us, he goes to all my colleagues. Even though we were younger, we were behind him. He goes, "You're all gonna graduate." You're all gonna finish. You're all essentially he was saying you're all the same. You're gonna be me. And so that was a sense of humility. It was not, oh, I'm in control and I have power, but it was more of you're gonna be where I am. So let's all be good together. And that stuck with me. I didn't know what wisdom was. I didn't know. Who knew? No, I was a scientist and I am a scientist, focused on getting my MD and then I got a master's focused on science and I did not know wisdom was. And wisdom, I feel like many have asked me now that I've spoken to 60 people, what is it? And I'm like, well, I know we've had a lot of famous people talk about it, but I feel like it's a sense of meaning, having meaning in your life, and having a sense of and like happiness, meaning and happiness and fulfillment. And I just feel like when someone because it's not a sexy word. Wisdom is not sexy, especially now in the internet days, it's just not. But I definitely feel like after having talked to these people, meaning was something that they just got. They were just content and they had meaning.
I know you learned a lot doing this, but was there something that maybe affected you more personally than the others?
I think it was a kindness part. I mean, that was the second theme. I did ask all the people, why were you? So the way it worked was people were nominated by someone as wise to be in the study. And the first question I asked them is, why do you think you were nominated for this study? And the majority of people, no majority, I mean, no, yeah, majority, it was second theme. The second element, what they did some form of kindness. They either volunteered, they had nonprofits, they something they were kind to other people, they some form of kindness. And I think for me, as I said, I come from the Middle East. It was not ever something that was viewed highly. And my parents didn't talk about it. It's just not. My husband is very kind. So I clearly was drawn to it when I married him, but it's not something I grew up with. And my mom was all kind to me. So it's something that has become more of focus now.
It's crazy how nowadays nearly everything you talked about, it seems to be what the opposite of what everybody wants, especially when you're on something like social media.
I was on next door for something, and the amount of unkindness I saw, and I feel like the being anonymous on next door or just having name and being able to say whatever you want. People are just so mean. I was like, really? Is that necessary? Like, but then I was like, you really need to have thick skin, you really, and then it was just, so I'm not a fan of social media. I'm not, but I realize it's part of our lives. I'm definitely not a fan.
What really bothered me is I interviewed a lady who has a fatal disease. She is going to pass away, but she is spending the rest of her life trying to bring awareness to this disease. She's written books and she's trying to earn money to go towards the research, that kind of
Okay.
thing. And she was the first person that I can say actually made me cry while I was interviewing her. It touched me so much, and I still pray for her to this day. I put up the video and thinking of all the videos I put up, surely this was going to be the one that got the most positive feedback. I actually, and I can take, I've had people call me all kinds of names and what have you. But for them to put down this lady for what she was doing, that hurt. I don't get
I
it.
can understand. I mean, I feel like you need to have like a shield of how mean people can be.
Mhm.
And you know, it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine. She received a lot of negative comments about something. And she was like, you know what? The whole idea of kill him with kindness. She turned around and said, I'm sorry. And she was so nice because I'm sorry you feel that way. And I'm like, and you just have to have compassion for someone that is so miserable, so miserable, so unkind to say and do what they're doing.
It's got to be
That's all you
something.
can do. And so and you know what? Many have said the internet kind of fosters hate. It really does. But you have to have compassion. That's all you can do.
Something has happened in this person's life to make them feel the way they're feeling.
And I wonder if they really feel that way.
Well, some just like to be trolls, but there are some that I guess they've been hurt so bad that they've got to take it out on other people.
They do. And that's all I can think of. They really do. And they do take it out on other people. So, as you said, you know, this podcast is more positive, but negative ones get more views and likes and whatever. I think it's probably because people resonate with negative ones because they are miserable, maybe. I don't know. It takes a lot to be positive. It does. It's not easy. It's a choice. It takes a lot. Like when, you know, I've told you I can't walk, and I often have to use a wheelchair if I go to long places. Very unlike me, who was the ER physician, right? And my daughter was like, Mom, I don't like it when you, right? And I'm like, well, why don't we be grateful they made a chair that moves, right? Why don't we, that it's a chair that moves. This is not going to be how I'm going to be forever. But it's a chair that moves. She goes, yeah, that's true. So it's really perspective.
Now, there's quite a bit that we could cover, but I think people should probably check out the book. So, where can people get your book?
It's on Amazon, and that's the best place. And it's funny because I have the hardcover, softcover, ebook, and the audiobook all available on Amazon. So I do think the way to remember it is common wisdom. Common meaning what were the 8 elements that they all had in common? And my name is Laura Gabayan.
And what is your website?
So that's all my name. I wonder if Amazon takes it to my name, but lauragabayan.com. And that one also is a great way for people to learn more about the project. It took
And
me a few years, like time to do it, and then I wrote the book.
and as much as we don't like social media, it's kind of a necessary evil. What all platforms are you on?
I'm definitely on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram.
I will put all those links in the description just to make it easier, folks. But Laura, thank you so much for coming on my show.
It was great to meet you. Very nice to talk to you.
Oh, same here.
Thank
Same
you.
here. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, well, I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button for my regulars. You guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network